But I do want to get to this clip. Glenn Greenwald was on Amy Goodman this morning. We did a segment last week in solidarity with the Intercept, with Glenn Greenwald, with Victor Pogge, who's also a really important writer there. These stories, look, on some level, look, it's fun to have a degree of vindication for something that we've said from the very outset of what's been happening in Brazil. We were covering the political imprisonment of Lula before he was imprisoned. I think it's important because Lula is an incredibly important leader, somebody who has a lot of insight for actually how to defeat right-wing authoritarianism, and because the largest country in Latin America is in a sort of slow-motion ongoing coup that absolutely, in my view, is connected to a U.S. influence. And I would go back to the very aggressive NSA spying on Petrobras. Glenn Greenwald has broken this story, and he is facing very, very serious death threats. This is a clip of him this morning from Democracy Now!
Brazil don't realize is that Jair Bolsonaro and his far-right movement is not quite like, say, the right-wing movement that brought Trump into office or that has ushered in this new extremist right in Western Europe, which tends to focus more on fear-mongering and demonization over Muslims and immigrants. A big part of Jair Bolsonaro's movement has been demonizing and stigmatizing LGBTs, claiming that we are pedophiles who want to convert people's children, really stimulating huge, intense levels of hatred. The only LGBT member of Congress prior to 2018 fled the country in under really, really serious and specific death threats. My husband then took his place. Ironically, he was next in line in the election and is also, of course, openly gay. And the threats we've been getting are not the kind of death threats that you get when you're a public official every day. People just write you a quick note on the internet saying, I hope you die or you deserve to be killed. They're death threats that include our very personal data, our social security equivalent number, sometimes our address, information that only people in official positions could acquire. They're very graphic and directed at our children, at our family, and at us personally. They're the kind of threats that obviously a lot of thought goes into and a lot of resources are behind. And that's why we take them very seriously and have been turning them over to the federal police. Unfortunately, that federal police is commanded by Sergio Moro, who, as our reporting demonstrates, is willing to cross every line and break every law in order to achieve whatever ends he deems just. And so our confidence in their ability or their willingness to investigate those threats is not very high.
So there you have it. I know, Emma, you wanted to talk about this.
No, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Look, just the more you learn about this, I mean, again, immense credit to your entire team for just being on this story for so long. And it's one of the greatest, the most important stories in the world, if not the most important story in the world right now. And one of my two heroes going into this profession was my boss, Cenk, and Glenn Greenwald. And I think that there is, it speaks to his unbelievable talents, bravery, smarts, instincts as a journalist that he is now breaking this enormously important story after the NSA story.
Right.
And both of those stories put him at enormous personal risk. And now he has sons and he has a husband. And the bravery of his journalism is something that cannot be understated. And I know that there's a lot of people on the left who have decided that he's the devil and that because of the disagreements on the Russia story, and it's just fuck that. There are so few people like this in the world. I mean, there might only be one with his bravery and with his kind of the legacy that he's going to leave on this world.
I agree with you completely. And another thing that I do appreciate about Glenn, and I've interviewed him now a couple of times. I mean, Glenn has no problem whatsoever with anybody pushing back on him. And there are things I strongly disagree with Glenn about, including some of the things even on this story.
Right.
But his reporting and his physical courage, I think this is a really important reality check for people who've gotten, either demonized him or been super complacent and naive about the actual situation he is in.
Right.
That's couldn't be more real. I want to play just one final quick piece of sound just because, look, I think that this story is not completed until Lula is free. There's a reason this has always meant so much to me. I feel a little bit more comfortable, honestly, covering this a touch less because it has kind of expanded. But we did need to really hold the torch on this. This is a profoundly important story. And I want to play a little bit again. This is Lula before he went to prison. This is one of the great modern leaders that we have. And he is imprisoned by the forces we are most afraid of. And he has some of the most powerful insights and ability to communicate against the Trumps, against the Bolsonaros, and every other threat that we face. And about a minute in is when it will start. We have some B-roll footage of this. But this always kind of haunts me talking about this part.
Eu vou lá na barba deles, para eles saberem que eu não tenho medo, para eles saberem que eu não vou correr e para eles saberem que eu vou provar a minha inocência. Eles têm que saber disso.
Well, that's it. But I just think that's extraordinary. And now, as he said regularly, he said several weeks ago with Glenn in an interview, he's like, look, I'm obsessed with showing Sergio Moro who he is. And it should have been, look, it was analytically obvious what was happening, but now it's completely empirically validated. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.